Yeah, let's jump in. Maybe you guys can give quick intro on yourself and what you're building, and I believe all of you are partnered with ZetaChain, so let's learn about that too.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, I'm the CEO and co-founder of XDeFi Wallet. We're the wallet that now supports the most chains out there. We've been building for 4 years, and yeah, we're looking forward to what comes next. We have a lot of big stuff being released at the end of the summer with a fully new rebrand and a new product, including a mobile wallet that has been expected for a long time now by our users.
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me. I'm Alex, head of sales at Bware Labs. Bware Labs is an infrastructure company. Our main product is an RPC platform where we support ZetaChain as well. And yeah, excited to hear more about the infrastructure side and have this talk today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. My name is Nick. I help lead BD Partnership Sales, pretty much everything on the go-to-market side at Alchemy. If you're not familiar with Alchemy, we're the leading Web3 developer platform. We recently actually just announced our partnership with ZetaChain, so super excited to be on the stage and appreciate you for having me.
Thanks, guys, for being here. So if you caught the last part of the panel, they were going super deep into cross-chain intent and all parts of the interop stack and what's out there. I think what might be helpful is hearing from your perspective. We hear omni-chain, cross-chain, multi-chain. From your perspective, what's kind of going on in the space? What's the argument for multi-chain and how things look right now?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me, by the way. I didn't say that earlier. So I do believe that today I know that like most crypto holders today, they are essentially holding crypto on centralized venues. I think this is between 400 and 500 million users that are essentially like interacting with centralized venues. Only 10% max of that have already onboarded into self-custody. And the main reason for that is that either they didn't have like the incentive to move into self-custody, or because it was just too complex for them to move into self-custody. I do believe that at some point or another, people will kind of follow the money, right? And see like the latest meme coin being listed on Uniswap, Radium, or Jupiter, or another exchange, or like opportunities related to farming airdrops or interacting with DeFi apps, GameFi, and so on. And will have an incentive strong enough to actually move into self-custody. The issue so far is that the very first layer they interact with when they want to do on-chain stuff is generally a wallet, and wallets historically haven't been essentially easy to interact with for someone that doesn't understand like the concept of seed phrase, how gas management works, etc. So ultimately, when you are on a centralized venue, you don't really care about like chains. It's abstracted for you. You only care about your assets. Essentially, you buy an asset, you hold it, and you hope to make a profit out of it. This is exactly how I believe like wallets should be built now, essentially reproducing the UX that you have on a centralized exchange, but in a decentralized fashion, in a self-custody fashion. And that's what we've been working on. So it starts by being chain agnostic, covering as many chains as you can possibly cover, because you can't really ask a user to move into self-custody to buy an asset on Solana and or on another blockchain, and then subsequently tell him like, okay, if you want to buy and hold an asset on another ecosystem, you actually need another wallet, deal with another seed phrase, deal with other type of gas tokens. So ultimately, I believe chain abstraction has to happen at multi-chain level as opposed to like cross-EVM level. And wallets have to track the concept of authentication as much as they can and facilitate also as much as it can like the abstraction of gas. It includes plenty of other things. I'm not going to expand on that because otherwise I'm going to take the full hour. But yeah, I think it's the responsibility of wallet providers in the first place as the very first interface you interact with when you go on chain to abstract as much as complexity as it's possible to allow all of these users to migrate, and it comes via chain abstraction as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important what Émile said, and if you think about how blockchains work now, most of the existing blockchain networks operate in a silo, and that's a big stumbling point for many crypto users, crypto projects, and so on, because it gets really difficult, like Émile was mentioning with the wallets. And I think here is where omnichain becomes really important in trying to to tackle those challenges, to bring communication between those networks. And in the end, it's also actually fostering decentralization, because if you have one chain where you can access all the different chains, it gives the opportunity to further decentralize, because users have one point of access where they can come in, and it helps in transferring assets, access different DApps on different blockchains, executing smart chains for developers where they can go to all of the chains that are integrated into one chain. So I think this is really important, because what we all hope for is actually bringing the big thing that we talk about, bringing Web3 adoption, and only with this kind of tools where it becomes really easy and it's actually a Web2 experience, you don't realize that there is some blockchain going on in the back. That's when we can come to this big adoption, and that's where omni-chains will be really helpful in closing that gap.
I agree with what Alex had said, with Émile as well. At Alchemy, we're not Alchemy Pay, actually. We're at Alchemy, the infrastructure company. I just noticed the wrong logo. Common that a lot of folks will kind of mix us up, but we think about it from like a developer infrastructure standpoint, right? We're trying to make it as easy as possible for developers to build on any chain that they need for where their consumers are at. Many of them are chasing liquidity, some are chasing interesting use cases that some chains offer versus others. At the end of the day, though, we are a very unopinionated platform that just want to give folks the tools to build across any chain that makes sense for their team. So yeah, we are providing a very simple dashboard for you to be able to switch in and out various types of blockchains, giving you the ability to track usage as well as key consumption across any of the various networks, and then getting to the point we can start to connect you with various teams within each of those ecosystems. So again, taking a very unopinionated view into what is this world of kind of cross-chain.
Thanks, guys. And I'll have to nudge design team about that. Sorry. Yeah, so tons of blockchains out there. L2s popping up every day, it seems. Not all blockchains are created equal, though. And curious, you're thinking, like, one, how should developers approach building on chains? What are some of the indicators and how they might evaluate building on chains? And then with your project specifically, how you approach where you put integration resources and which chains you partner with and make that effort. Maybe you could talk through that process as well. Maybe we'll start with you, Nick. Switch it up.
Yeah, me too. So I touched on this a little bit in my last answer. Historically, Alchemy has been supporting what we like to say is the deepest developer ecosystems. So if you've used Alchemy in the past, maybe your common frustration was, hey, we really like Alchemy's tools, but you just don't support the networks that we're looking for. It's been a common frustration for a lot of teams. That's because we took maybe a little bit of a older or more of an archaic stance that there were a few L2s out there that strongly stood out in terms of the ecosystems that developers wanted to build in. But fast forward to the last 6 months, the last 12 months, there's obviously been a revolution, if you will, with app chains and then all these various L2s that are coming out that now developers are wanting to build in, 15, 20, 30, 50 different ecosystems. So we're effectively needing to go and support them in the ecosystems that make sense for, again, their project. We're very unopinionated around that. When we speak with developers, largely we're chatting with them once they've kind of made the decision, okay, this is the ecosystem that I think makes the most sense. Cool, Alchemy supports this, plus you have the tools that we need and a number of other things. It makes sense for us to use you as a platform. But there are a number of conversations. We recently rolled out our RAS, Roll Up as a Service platform, where we're supporting a few ecosystems there. And in that conversation, we're able to educate folks around the reason to select one framework over another. So I think a lot of folks are thinking around what's their use case, where's there a lot of consumers, where's their liquidity, et cetera, as they start to think about the adoption or maybe the acceleration of their specific project across a number of ecosystems.
Thank you. So, for Blast, it's very similar. We are chain agnostic. Of course, in the past, it was much easier to know which chains to integrate, which chains are used, because there were many less of them. Right now it's steadily increasing and more chains are launching. We see in the market that, as Nick was saying, for apps it's important to have a platform where they can expand to many different blockchains, to grab liquidity or users from other blockchains, to move pretty fast. We have more than 40 blockchains integrated, so trying to be as open as possible for all the developers. One important thing is still to choose the right blockchains with so many coming. So we have a dedicated team that is looking, of course, into the technology, into the teams that are building the blockchains. Another very important part is, of course, the feedback from our users, from our developers that are already using Blast. Where do they see new potential? Where do they want to expand? So there are a lot of discussions ongoing, and it's important to choose the right ones that are there to stay, because also as an RPC provider, there's a lot of effort involved in bringing new chains and integrating them. So yeah, that's pretty important to choose right now.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, I mean, as a wallet, I think, and based on what I just said before, that we have to try and support as many chains as we can. It's quite hard to, especially when you work with an extension client, which is absolutely terrible to work with in the first place, to add natively like all the different chains that are popping out of nowhere, especially like layer 2s and Cosmos chains. So ultimately, like, the direction we took is to add like a custom RPC that allows people, a little bit like in MetaMask, to add manually, without leaving the wallet, to add any EVM network that exists, but also any Cosmos chains. So it works for both ecosystems. So that's the first thing, right? So we don't have to work like separately like on all of these different integrations. We do go deeper and integrate them natively if we have a close relationship with the given ecosystem and support from the apps and the foundation. And we do believe that like it's going to expand, and we also think that like we can improve the UX for their community. Now, when it comes to picking like the right layer ones to integrate, which takes more time because it requires like a native integration, there are a lot of things that we're going to look at. It's really hard to figure out like what is going to be like, how would I say that, the hyped ecosystem in 6 months' time, because what is going to be shiny today is probably not going to be shiny tomorrow. And as a developer and as a wallet, we know it's going to take us like probably like 4 to 5 months, maybe less, depends on what we integrate. But it's going to take a bit of time to integrate it, and by the time we integrate it, it's probably not going to be something that has that much traction, and we will have spent a lot of time and effort for actually not as much as we would have expected in the first place. So I would say that like we are first and foremost looking at ecosystem that have managed to build like a strong developer community that will build some user cases on top of the VM in question that will solve actual problem and onboard more people into crypto to open more distribution channels for us. We're looking for ecosystems that are willing to partner closely with us and open to us like the DApp ecosystem to us. They can support us natively on their interfaces, which is exactly what ZetaChain, Jonathan was a big part of that, and other members of the team did, and this is why we work closely with them as well. We were able to access all the DApps that are building on top of ZetaChain. That was incredible for us. We had different campaigns organized around the integration of the wallets and promoting like the launch of ZetaChain. And when it works like that, it's actually delightful, but it's not always the same with all foundations. And then we're trying to look at, okay, what's the differentiator for a given like ecosystem that probably doesn't have traction now, but we expect it's going to have traction in 6 months' time, which is really complicated, right, to position yourself for, because you're basically just like in this constant motion of trying to catch a wave that probably never comes. So it's pretty complicated. Ultimately, we've completely open sourced our chain library, so anyone can build on top of it and add their own chain. Then we still need to do the front-end integration, but it's still like much less work for us. And hopefully in the future, it's going to make us like able to support any chains. To give you an idea, today, like we literally do wallet that supports the most chains because of the custom RPC on both the Cosmos and the EVM front. A lot of these chains are probably not alive still, but like I think in total it's 1,800 chains, which is quite a lot. and we'll continue to expand as we go.
For sure. Yeah, what's hot now is old news in 6 months. Some of these trends turn over every 2 weeks. But at the end of the day, the whole mission of ZetaChain is interoperability, building for all networks, which is here to stay. I want to follow up with you, Émile, about non-EVM support and some of the limitations of smart contract wallets, and maybe you could talk more about the use case of that successful campaign where you can have an XDeFi wallet on Bitcoin, and as a Bitcoin user, call an app, a universal app on ZetaChain, and do lending, borrowing, any sort of arbitrary application logic you can call from Bitcoin. That's a pretty unique thing. And is there anything else like it? Maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the main reasons outside of what I've mentioned earlier why we wanted to work with you guys, because ultimately we support Bitcoin and most of the other UTXOs. We support Cosmos, the EVM space, and we wanted to build with a project that is actually approaching this from a holistic point of view and not just from an isolated perspective. And I think this is what exactly ZetaChain is trying to achieve. And as a wallet, if we can facilitate the UX around that for the users and allow them to only use one interface to interact with the different DApps of your ecosystem guys that are supporting different VMs, that will be a massive success for us because it will make the UX easier for your user. Ultimately, the way I look at smart contract wallets is that's great for one ecosystem, but it's not solving, again, holistically, the UX pain point associated with self-custody. Because once again, you onboard into a smart contract wallet that is supporting only EVM networks, great. Then what happens when you want to buy something on Solana, when you want to hold Bitcoin into self-custody, or if you want to any other assets on any other ecosystem? Well, basically you need to download another wallet and deal with another seed phrase and have a UX that is probably not as good as the smart contract wallets on the EVM side that we're using. So our approach, and this is similar to what you guys have been doing, right? And again, that's why we work together, is to solve UX pain points associated with self-custody in a multi-chain fashion. And it's not easy, it takes a lot of time. It comes at the inconvenient of not necessarily being in the first place the best wallet for one given ecosystem and attract all of its traction early on, but ultimately on the long run it creates a moat that is very complicated to displace because it takes so much time and resources to build it that not just anyone can jump into it and decide to build it tomorrow. There are no framework for that.
I'm being told we have to wrap up, actually. So this talk is about universal apps, and maybe a last word from you guys about what you think the most important use case in crypto is. If you're a developer starting a company, DeFi, social gaming, stables, what do you think is a killer use case that we have to solve? Of course, being natively cross-chain and universal.
Yeah, really quick, sorry guys. So yeah, I mean just being able to move assets across an ecosystem to another and have aggregated balance across your assets doesn't matter on which ecosystem they are living on. I think that makes a lot of sense, and that will help to come from a place where liquidity is highly fragmented into some sort of consolidation that makes the space much more intelligible and the UX overall much smoother.
So for me, yeah, all the industries that you mentioned are important going forward. So we would need to see universal apps in all of them. For me as a gamer, I would love to see some gaming projects that are there for the fun to play, not play to earn, what we are experiencing right now. And a universal app for me would be, you don't even know that it's powered by blockchain technology. You are just playing a game or trading or whatever, and it feels like a Web2 experience, and only if you dig into it, you will see it's actually powered by blockchain technology in the back. That's when we really get to a universal app, and we will get more users that are using blockchain.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to add to both of those points. I think from just a consumer standpoint, I have assets across 25 different blockchains that I can't even move off it because it's so small that the gas fees on those just make it impossible to actually shift them off of those various blockchains. I'd love for that problem itself to be solved. I think from a gaming use case, being able to change assets across any specific blockchain is interesting. And I think identity, a potential interesting use case to be able to effectively map across any various type of application that's built.
Cool. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, gentlemen.